So up until this point, we will have learnt, or you should have learnt, that in Spanish, verbs have three different endings, okay? They can end in AR, ER, or IR, okay? And this is what helps us to identify a word that is a verb. For example, hablar, what's a good one for ER? Comer, and escribir. There are characteristics in these three that can help us identify that these are verbs, okay? And they are obviously what we've just discussed, the fact that they end in either AR, ER, or IR. Now, a verb, we should remember from primary school, is just a doing word. Or, the way I like to think of it, is an action that can have the word to in front of it. So we'll take each one. To. Hablar means to speak, to eat, comer, and escribir, to write. Okay, so you can see that the verbs all have to in front of it. This means that they are in their infinitive form, okay? An infinitive form just means that they have still got the AR, ER, or IR ending, okay? So we've done nothing to them. That's just how they are. When we move on to conjugations, we need to understand what conjugating actually is. Okay, so in English, we say things like he speaks, she eats, we write, okay? Again, they have those pronouns in front of the verbs. Well, in Spanish, instead of putting them at the front, we put them at the end, and the verb changes depending on who is doing it. And we're going to go over those changes now. So, our first step for when we're conjugating a verb is to remove the AR, ER, or IR. So, remove AR, ER, or IR. That's our first step. So, we'll take each verb that we discussed up there. So, hablar, comer, and, escribir. We're going to chop them off. And I'm going to use a different colour so that we can see I've done that. Chop that off, chop that off, chop that off. And I'm going to rewrite it. Now, the job isn't done there. What we have to do now is we have to add the new ending on. And depending on the type of verb that it is, the ending is going to be different. And to make things easier, I'm going to give each verb ending a different colour on the table. So I'm going to do AR in green, ER in blue, and IR in pink. So when we draw up our table, there are a few different people who could be doing the action. So, yo, tú, él, ella, nosotros, vosotros, and ellos. So the yo, it means like me or I. Tú is obviously you. Él, ella is he, she, and it. Okay. So he, she, it. The ending for el, ella will also apply to it. Vosotros is we. Vosotros is you, plural. Or the easiest way to remember is like the Americans say y'all. And then ellos is them. And the ending is different depending on who's doing it. So we are going to, first of all, come up with a few different people who are doing the actions. So I'm going to say, she speaks. They eat. And we write. We'll come back to those in a bit. Let's start off with our AR verb endings. Add the colour green. There we go. So, in the AR verbs, you add an O for me. You add an S for you. For he, she, it, you add an A. For we add amos. For you, plural, you add ice with an accent on the A. And for eos or them, you add an. That's our AR endings. For our ER endings, you also add O. For me or for I, you add an S, an E, an S for you, an E for he, she, or it. Hemos for we. Ace with an accent on the E for you, plural. And N for they. Now for IR verbs, it is very similar. There are just two differences. So ER and IR verbs are very similar. We'll do pink. See if we can find pink. There we go. So it is again O, S, A. And then the two that are different are we and you, plural, and N. Okay, but the other four are the same. Only difference is for nosotros is imos, and then for vosotros or the you plural, it's is with an accent on the I. Let's come back to our examples that we've got here. So she speaks. First of all, I know that the verb to speak is hablar. Okay, my first step is always to chop off the AR, and I'm left with hable. I'm going to come to my table. I'm going to look at the L and A forms because this is the he, she, it form. Going to come to my AR column by here, and I can see that I need to add an A to the end of the hable, to make it he, she speaks. Or in this case, she speaks. So I'm going to add habla, okay? Habla, she speaks. You can also put the pronoun in front of it. So, ella habla. You don't need the pronoun there, but you can if you would like to. Especially if you want to put emphasis on who is doing it. They eat. Well, again, I know that the verb to eat is comer. Next step is to chop off that ER and rewrite it, so com. I'm going to, again, come to my table, this time in the ER section, and I'm looking for they, and it's the eos, so I know it's N, and I can add an EN then to my com, and it becomes comen. Again, you can say ellos comen for they eat. Emphasis on the pronoun if you would like. We write, well, I know the verb to write is escribir. What's my rule? Chop off that IR. Rewrite it without it. So escrib. I'm going to come back to my table here. And I am going to take a look at the nosotros section, because that's we. Come across, and I can see that I need to add imos in order for it to make sense. So I'm not to make sense. Sorry, for it to be in the we form. So I'm going to add imos to make it escribimos. And again, emphasis. I can say nosotros escribí. It might be a bit difficult to see actually. Nosotros escribimos. Okay, we write. I hope this video has been a little bit helpful. If you have any questions, feel free to email them across to me or leave them in the comments.